Welcome to Out of the Blue Artistry, where everything's a little bit out of the blue and hopefully what I make helps you feeling from a little bit blue. This video starts with a little peruse around some op shops of Australia where I picked out a few items that piqued my interest, and a couple of them I used for the project that's in this video today. You wouldn't believe it, but I ended up with a pretty crystal napkin holder and a nice square jar, and that was the basis of what happened next. So please stick with me, please enjoy. If you enjoy these videos, think about liking and subscribing. I'd love to have you around. As you can see, the star of the show is the crystal napkin holder. I'm tracing the inside of the napkin holder onto some acrylic sheeting. It's milky coloured because it still has the coating on it that I'll pull off later. This was a very thick piece of sheeting, so it was very difficult to cut. So maybe keep that in mind if you need to do it. It was some effort, my sanity seekers. It was some effort. The plan of attack is to make an infinity mirror inside the napkin holder. I'll make 2 mirrors out of these 2 pieces using reflective tinting and glue them on either side so they reflect upon one another, and a light source in the center. So at this stage I'm still battling the acrylic, but yeah, it comes out good. This is the tint like you would put on a car, and just cutting it to size and putting it onto the acrylic sheeting. If I were to do that stage again, I would use soapy water instead of plain water. My thinking was that I could have tiny ripples in it, so it would give it more of a magical, ripply look, but I think next time I would just go straight. If you use a little bit of tape on either side, that helps pull it apart very easily, save yourself hours of frustration. That's my mum's dog in the background there. We're babysitting. His name's Teddy Bear. I can hear them roaring around the house. They just stopped. Okay, so I've watered the side that I will stick I'm just going to call it glass because I keep forgetting the name acrylic. I keep going to say acetate. It's not the same thing. So my thinking was it could be like wrinkly and kind of cool, but in hindsight I think I would have preferred it just perfectly straight. To get all those bubbles out, you want a little bit of soap in your water. This is the first time I've ever made an infinity mirror. I've been wanting to do it since forever. So this is an exciting moment for me, and I have so many more of these infinity mirrors planned in quite a few different ways. It's such an interesting concept. When I was a kid, I loved looking in, like putting a mirror against another mirror and having a look in it, and I found it mesmerizing and magical. So and interestingly, if you look at it from a spiritual point of view, they say that mirrors and mirrors upon mirrors open portals, or is a portal, and so that's another magical way of looking at it as well. I've picked out some lights. They're a lot bigger than what I was thinking, but I'm working with it because that's what I've got. I'm also thinking in the future to give myself a a strategy of not buying any new items to use, just using what I've got in my little workshop here. And also, except for maybe going to the op shop, because that's a fun and it's such a spike of inspiration when you go into an op shop and find something interesting and new. It's so much different from going to a shop where you kind of know what you're looking for and you're after something specific. With op shops, you're treasure hunting, and that's a fantastic way of sparking the imagination. So I've just super glued one of the mirrors in, and I tried one technique of having the lights haphazard inside, so it was all kind of whirly, for lack of a actual word. But I wasn't stoked with it, so I redid it. And I decided to go with more of a tunnel effect, and I felt that the wire, to me, looked like twigs and willow and kind of more natural as it imperfectly wound around the outside of the tunnel. So that I was really, really pleased with. And the fact that the lights come up uneven and a little more natural, and that also made me happy. So I've got the wire hanging out the bottom of one side, peeling off the covers of each mirror, and there I have my little infinity mirror. It's just a little tunnel that goes forever, and I'm pretty stoked with that. My first infinity mirror, guys. Like, that's worth a thumbs up and probably a subscribe, am I right? Alright. This is my little square jar that I picked up from the op shop. Well, actually it's not little, it's pretty big. It's larger than average, I would say. Gave it a quick clean with some alcohol, and popping it aside for later. I've got some scrap foam lying around, so I'm using that to give myself a base to work off. After doing a project that required me to make something quite specific, referring to particular photos, and that's with my Lethal Company project, I really wanted to do something very freeform and natural, and I really enjoy doing gardens and natural landscapes, working with mosses and so on and so forth. It feels good for my soul, peeps. I need to cut out a section to sit the little battery box in. That's my first point of call with this base. I just got this foam out of some old packaging from something my kids bought, some techie thing. I need to trace around because I want to make an indent in the bottom for the glass to fit into, which is what I'm doing here. I'll dig out a little ditch. And then of course I want to build up the center a little bit so it's like a natural little hill, which I will do here in a moment as well. I would love to hear in the comments, people, if you like to go op shopping to find things to make things, like whether it be boxes or jars, or perhaps you like to scour the place for vintage forks and make jewelry out of it. I used to do that years ago. There are so many, unironically, opportunities. Or if you're overseas, a thrift shop. We call them op shops here in Australia, short for opportunity. So I've got my nice little base. I've dug out a hole to sit my portal in, and I have this lovely piece of fake moss or grass that is I'm really stoked with. It's lovely. I've got this from Temu for possibly like $5. in Australia, because Australia's expensive for flipping everything. I just want to make sure that I get the center, so I'll fold the corners as close as I can and get to that little center and give it a nick. And then I've got a spot for my portal. Another thing I used to like to do quite a number of years ago now is get those old 70s they weren't paintings, they were prints, and the middle was raised out, and I used to get very brightly coloured house paint and paint the whole thing and do an artwork, and so the artwork would spill off the centre and onto the frame itself, and they were very cool. You don't see those frames around anymore. Let's dose this piece up with some clear tacky glue, and it doesn't have to be clear, but that's what I have. And I'm going to use some pins to just try and make sure I get those little indents, so I've got somewhere for the jar to sit in nicely while it dries. And that is a pretty sweet little mound of grass. Just got to check, make sure that fits nicely, and I feel like it does. My portal fits nicely. I had to think whether I wanted to use the rest of the lights that were left over, because I only used possibly 50 of those 100 little LEDs. I did think about whether I could put it around the edges to use to light up the piece, or whether I could use it through the trees like fairy lights. And in the end I opted to cut it off and not have anything else lit up, because I really wanted the portal to stand out on its own. Like it's something magical that's been discovered in the middle of a forest somewhere, and I wanted it to stand on its own, not fight with something else for its highlight. I mean, really, you could have almost have left it right there, but I don't do that. We're going to keep going. This is a piece of coral that I also got off Temu. Not real coral, just plastic. I did expect it to be a lot smaller, but it did come in very handy, so I'm not mad. Just cut off a couple of pieces to make myself some trees. It was plastic, so I could curve it around nice and easy and make it into like a brambly kind of bush. So, yeah, all in all, not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Got to think outside the box. I did get a white one of these as well. Maybe I could do a snow scene one day, something similar. That would be pretty cute. So I want to curve it around and kind of have the portal hiding in amongst the bush. This is some kind of fine, mossy, I don't know. It's flocking, but it's like tree flocking. It's the first time I used this one. It was pretty cool. Pretty happy with it. I'm just covering all the pieces I want to in tacky glue. I want to keep quite a few of the branches clear though. So I know it looks like a little bit spiky, and natural, I guess. I'm not sure about my technique here. There probably could have been a better way of doing this. But I just covered it. I covered it top, I covered it bottom, I plopped and shoved and tabbed and thingied and duty what's it, and there we have it. I mean, it worked, right? And it's all fairly one colour. So after I'd done this second one, I wanted to put a second shade in, so I used a lighter one, and it has a bit different texture to it. So I think it worked really well to get a bit of variation in the trees or the bushes, because nothing's one colour, right? I just sprinkled and tapped, just kind of, just to get a variation. I'd call that pretty nice, wouldn't you? If you don't agree with me, that's okay. Again with the glue, we'll pop the little trunkies in there and curl them over. Use some pins to hold them into place while they dry. And on to the next stage. If you're having trouble getting a pin through a hard surface, pliers are very handy. Instead of snapping it off or stabbing yourself in the forehead, you can always just pull it down from halfway and then use it. I have a big box of interesting boxes and tins that I would like to do a series on as well, to just make interesting things out of them. Too many ideas and not enough time. So I'm just going to lay this second tree over the top and around. It'll give us some thickness and hopefully a bit more natural kind of cover. It's a little bit fiddly, but I think once I got it in place and pinned, it's fine. It pretty well stayed there. At this stage I really noticed all the stringy bits, and I thought I'm going to maximise on that and put in some more stringy bits with the glue and make some spider webs. So I'll lock that in the back of my little brain box there, and then I'm going to work on some fixing up these lights a bit because it's way too long. I don't want to curl it up underneath it. It'll be a schmozzle. So I found a spot, cut it off, and work from there. I actually did stuff this up a little bit. I didn't stuff it up, I was dumb for a little bit because I didn't realise, it's common sense, but I did a dumb. I didn't realise that the copper wire, of course, would have coating against it, because otherwise it wouldn't work, right? Because if the wires touch and they conduct, then the lights won't work. It'll do a cross and it'll just be a schmozzle. So then I realised, well, it's copper wiring. I've got to sandpaper the coating off the wire so that the wires can conduct with one another, and then the lights will work again. So that was a moment. I honestly thought I was going to have to pull the whole project apart there for a bit. So that was a big relief when I realised that, and I thought, you dumbass, just sandpaper it. So after successfully shortening the wires, I've reattached, put a little bit of that tubing over it, shrink tube. Apparently this lighter is called a crack pipe lighter. I've been informed, so that's fun. And here we are. We have a shortened, nice, neat portal into the nether. Actually, that would be interesting. Put that down in the comments. Where do you think this portal would go to? What kind of world or planet, or, you know, is this where Bigfoot comes out? I would like to see that in the comments. That would be fun. So, coming back from my little brain box thought there a while ago, this is how I'm doing the spider webs. I'm just sort of stringing and attaching and, you know, just watch the video. This is what I'm doing with the clear glue. Tacky glue. It's fun stuff, peeps. And this is how I'm making the spider webs. How is that not fun? You need to do a project just making spider webs with the tacky glue. Just for fun. Nice, am I right? And you know, I want it to be sort of pretty, but I also want it to be a little bit scary because you don't know what's through the portal. No one does. I don't. So I put a little skull in there. And of course I don't want it to be completely scary. So amongst the plants and whatnot, I will also put some butterflies. Not caught in the webs, but just hanging out. It's both beautiful and a little bit scary. That's my goal. This is more moss that I'm making bushes out of. I've decided not to pull that pin out. I'm just covering the little guy. How pretty is it? And it's so soft. It's lovely. You may notice I have got a base on this, but don't get hung up on that at all because I'm gonna pull it off later anyway. That's what art's about, right? You change your mind, you move it around, and you try new things. It's all about working it out. If you're not working out each piece, it's more manufacturer. These cute little grassy tufts. It's the first time I got to use them. They are very, very cool, and gee, they level it up. There's some different coloured moss. I just want to have a variation in the bushes around the piece. Very lush. And my butterflies. I think it's kind of representative of life. Like it's, you know, it's not all good, it's not all bad. It's a bit of both. I plopped a big chunk of glue there and swirled it around a little bit to make it look as though this hand is coming out. It's kind of like water, like it's rippling as the hand comes out of the portal. Also, don't take a lot of notice of the pretty thing that I've got around it, because I got annoyed with that too and then pulled it off and did something else. It was a fairly major epiphany that came to me to put some real clear quartz crystal in there, because naturally clear quartz crystals would be growing in gigantic terminals all around the portal. I don't like using fake crystals in art, it's weird to me. I kind of like to use as much real type stuff as looks good. Alright, chuck that sucker away. Let's start again. I wanted a better base. I found this lovely little box. It was just the right size. I need to mark out a hole to cut so I can use the switch, and I'll need to hollow out the base that I've already made to be able to fit it underneath. You'll see, it's coming up. I do make a little hatch door here, but then I chop that off later too, so full of spoilers this show, isn't it? So I've got my hole, the hatch, which will become a hole, and I'm just blocking out this section so that the light box doesn't move around on me. Make sure it all lines up. I also don't want it to press right against the front, because otherwise it's hard to switch it on and off. And this way I can still pull it out and I can change batteries if I need to. For some reason I've decided the hand coming out of the portal is the front and the skull is the back of the portal in this scenario, and so that the switch needs to be on the right. I'm not sure if that's a rule, but in my head that's what works. After measuring, tracing, cutting out the nice big jar that I bought, I need to cut a hole, glue it all into place so it's nice and neat, and that will be the top. It would be kind of cool one day to do a series of artworks based on cryptids, because cryptids are very fun. They're very fun stories, and my hubby and I love listening to all the paranormal type shows and everything, so it would be cool to do a series of artworks based on them. I've got my base, and I just need to make sure that the artwork itself doesn't move around on me, so I've just cut out a few chunks and I'll wedge them in so nothing moves and everything stays in place. I have to squish my trees through my new lid, my altered lid. And there we have a pretty nifty little base. And I've used another thing out of my art room, so that in itself is pretty cool. This is some leather or pleather or fake leather, or I don't know, it looks cool. It's leatherish, leather-esque, if you will. Glue that little fella on there. And I'm just going to make a little flap for the hole. I mean, currently it's still a trapdoor, but it will become a hole. Of course, after I did the flap, then it was sticking out, and it was the whole thing. The material on the box is silk, which was really pretty, and I was struggling very much on, I wanted it to look sort of a bit ancient and magical, but I really liked the material and the box was pretty. So I compromised by using this copper finish pleather and keeping the orange top, and I think it works, especially with these embellishments that I'm putting on the corners here. I think it comes together nice. And this like a little label holder that you put on your drawers. I would actually like to use these a lot more in my artworks. I've only just bought them and I'm pretty happy with the result. It's a pretty schmick little finish. You're probably wondering, that was a glass doobie-likey. I can't remember what it's called. Put it in the comments, babes. It was fun to use, and I was actually surprised how well it went. Everything's all dry and glued and happy. There we go. There goes that trapdoor. See you later, sucker. Still works. Still works. Nifty. I would call that done, I think. On to the glamour shots. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for watching my video. It means the world to me. I do one day hope to do this as an actual job instead of a hobby, but nevertheless I am just glad to share my love with the world, and I really appreciate you being here. If you feel so inclined, I would love you to join me and become a sanity seeker and hit the subscribe button. And you know, if you're feeling extra generous, give it a like. Thank you for joining me in the portal. Be kind, accept kindness, and have a wonderful creative day.